And I'm big on too is first recognizing where we are, how we're feeling, what's our reality, our emotional reality, because I think it's important that if we name what we're feeling, when we do that, then we can heal from it. Then we can start to be restored. And I
Yes.
think it's important for us, whether we're angry or frustrated or scared or overwhelmed or feeling some level of mental, fatigue, or even if we're feeling stressed and unsupported, underappreciated, let's acknowledge that. And then we can start from there to then flip the script and to think about how we can now thrive through the storm.
Welcome to Behind Beliefs, Behaviors, and the Brain, your communication podcast, where we bring brain science and communication strategy together to transform how we lead, connect, and thrive. I am your host, Dr. Maisha Claiborne, mom, physician, coach, consultant, and lover of all things brain and behavior. I also happen to be a trained expert in cultivating trust and safety through trauma-informed communication. Now, you may be wondering, what the heck does that mean? No worries. On this podcast, you will come to understand it all. Together each Monday, we will explore and uncover what drives our beliefs, shapes our behaviors, and influences our communication, from individual relationships to organizational culture. Each week, we dive into the science behind trust and safety, relating, communicating, and breaking through limiting beliefs that hold us back. So listen up, because whether you're a leader, a parent, a spouse, or just some amazing individual trying to get the tips for operating in your highest self, on this podcast, you will learn how to harness the power of the brain to create real change in your relationships, your leadership, and your life. Tune in every Monday morning, and remember to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now let's dive in and start reshaping communication from the inside out. It's time to transform, one conversation at a time. Welcome back to another episode. I am so grateful, as always, to be your host and to be here for this podcast. As you know, I am always grateful for my audience because without you all, there is no podcast. So before I jump into it, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. And if you have been following me and you haven't left a review, now's the time. So go leave that review and let people behind you know that we are providing value information. And so with that, I am so excited for my guest today because this sister here. So how we came in contact, really I feel like is kismet. When her person reached out to me, I get lots of outreaches for podcast guests, but when I saw her name and I saw what she does, I was like, oh yes, this sister right here is she's like a kindred. And so then we had a conversation, as I often do with my guests, to like plan what are we going to talk about on this podcast. And it was just like we had known each other for some time. We really connected. So I am so excited. We're going to be talking about Beyond the What If, Thriving Through the Storm, with Dr. Shirley Davis, who is the president of SDS Global Enterprises. Her zone of genius is leadership, culture transformation, reinventing oneself, and career success. And so I am so excited to have this sister, author, speaker, consultant with me, Dr. Shirley Davis. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello, my dear sister. I'm telling you, I am so thrilled and honored to be here, especially after we had the conversation and we could have talked for hours because
Yes.
I just felt like I knew you. Our hearts were in sync, our lives were so connected, and we've had so many times and I think so many experiences
Yes.
where we probably should have been in the same room a long time ago. But thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Yes. Well, I love for my audience to get to know my guests a little bit. So, would you mind just sharing with us who you are, what you do, how you came to be who you are today?
Wow. So there's a lot to me, right? I really consider myself self-evolved. I have done a lot in my career, over 30 years in the corporate space and being a senior business executive. I worked in financial services and retail sales. I worked in banking, in the utility energy industry. I worked in a nonprofit. I've been in human resources and worked every area of HR, which is where you and I started finding some real synergies, because I'm
Yeah.
all about leadership development,
Yeah.
culture, and
Mhm.
how we transform the workplace so that all talent can be seen,
Mhm.
heard,
Mhm.
valued,
Mhm.
respected,
Yeah.
feel like they have access to opportunities and where they can thrive, where
Yes.
they feel psychologically safe. And
Yeah.
even you, right? You talk a lot about trauma, and
Mhm.
it's so much trauma in the workplace. But that's
Yeah.
the work that I was doing, because they would come to me as the HR
Yeah.
director or the HR executive and walk them through how to handle certain situations. So
Yeah.
that's a part of me. And then there's another part of me that is now running her own global consulting, coaching, and
Yeah.
training business. I'm a international speaker.
Yeah.
I'm a Toastmasters International Golden Gavel awardee back in
Yes.
which is only given to one person that year. And out of,
Mm.
oh my gosh, all speakers around the world, that was an amazing, amazing award. And then being a popular LinkedIn learning author, I done
Yeah.
8 courses. I'm working on my ninth one now, but all things career development and
Mhm.
all things leadership, and certainly how do we show up as our
Mhm.
best and most authentic self. And I consider myself an organizational psychologist. My PhD is in business and organizational leadership, but I
Mhm.
really do diagnose the issues, the ills, and the challenges inside of organizations and provide them strategies and solutions for how to turn that around.
That is so important, especially now with
Yeah,
all of the interesting things that we're dealing with.
yeah.
That the organization I see is sort of a microcosm for what happens in society and the world. It's just like a mini world.
So what's happening at home, what's happening in their
Mhm.
personal lives,
That's right.
they're taking it to work every day, because that's where we spend most of our time is,
That's right.
8 to 10 hours a day at work. So you're right. It's a microcosm of what's happening in our lives every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're talking about this whole piece of beyond the what if, and there's a lot of what ifs happening right now. There's a lot of what ifs are happening right now. There's a lot of storms that are sort of around us.
That's right.
And, what we can talk about, there's so many places to start in terms of thinking about how we think about the storm, how we think about thriving. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear where you want to start because, we could talk about it all day. So we got to maximize our time.
The work I'm in human resources and working with leaders and culture, look at where we are right now. I mean, we're definitely dealing with a lot of disruption. We're having to navigate a very deeply divided political landscape. Facts are debated. History is kind of whitewashed, and compassion and empathy has kind of taken a back seat. And I know that people in the workplaces are dealing with leaders that don't necessarily see them. They don't feel safe. They're not engaged. As a matter of fact, what we know is even the Gallup organization reports that now we are experiencing an all-time low of employee engagement. So only 31% of workers are highly engaged. So nearly 70% of those are not. So think about what people are feeling at work. They're feeling stress, anxiety, depression. And not only that, the American Institute of Stress tells us that we're experiencing higher levels of stress and anxiety. And
Yeah.
I know just even in my work with clients and working with individual leaders, and I'm coaching people, is that people feel disenfranchised. They feel a sense of disconnection, and they certainly feel like they are not seen and valued in the workplace, nor do they feel like they have equity and inclusion and belonging. All
Yeah.
of those things are realities.
One of the things that arises for me when you talk about like all that is going on and we know that you said it earlier, what we experience at home we often bring to the workplace
Mhm.
is the fear that is behind the what if. And there's a lot of uncertainty that's happening. And so when we think about disengagement, we think about feeling unsafe. A
Yeah.
lot of what underpins that is looking over one's shoulder and having that, well, what if? What if they do this? What if
Yeah.
they stop doing that? What if they defund this? What if this is happening?
And
What
they're
if I
doing
lose my
it.
job?
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but then that fuels more what ifs,
it
right?
does.
That
It
fuel
brings,
what if I lose my job? What if I lose my livelihood?
yeah.
What can and it's there's all of the fear that's underneath the what ifs.
And then the world outside, it would seem the world outside, and I say that for a specific reason, it would seem that the world outside is validating all of our fears behind the what if in a
Correct.
lot of ways.
It is. I mean, you think about the media, you think about all of the misinformation and the debates that are going on, the divisiveness that we're experiencing. And then you look at some of the things that are happening around us, whether it's, I mean, look at immigration and look at how people are treating each other. And people feel like they have permission to just treat people any kind of way, to say anything, and forgetting the humanity that
Yeah.
we all have. You're right. And for me, I can tell you, Dr. Maisha, I dealt with a lot of self-doubt. I dealt with a lot of those what ifs, and a lot of them came from within the workplace. They
Yeah.
came from within leaders who I was reporting to. They came from other workers or colleagues of mine who I know I was doing as good of work as they were, if not better. And yet I wasn't getting the promotions or the opportunities because I didn't look like the majority. And it left me feeling those disempowering, what if I'm not good enough? What if I need more education? What if I fail? What if I get rejected? What if, I'm too young? What if my skin is too dark? What if I'm a female? And some of those things you can't change,
Right.
but you internalize them, and then it starts to take your power away. And then you start to walk in fear and self-doubt and sense of inadequacy. And I did deal with that. I had to reinvent myself.
Yes, yes. I love that, you talked about reinvention, and I'm definitely, I want to get to that, but there's just something that occurred to me as you were talking that I wanted to highlight, which is there's this little thing, and you know about it, in our brain called the reticular activating system. And this reticular activating system, its job, and I always talk about this when I talk either
Yeah.
on podcasts or I'm in front of the room, or sometimes when I'm with my clients, my coaching clients. This
Uh-huh.
little reticular activating system, its whole job is to find in the world those things that are matching your inner world.
Yeah.
And so as we continue to look out and see what the media is giving us, what social media is giving us, what our organization might even be giving us, it narrows our vision, it narrows our view. And so I think it's interesting to think about this when we're talking about this idea of shifting from surviving to thriving through the storm and with reinvention, because we
That's right.
can't see the bright spots and the possibilities when we are in that swirl of the storm.
That's right.
And so, I shared with you before in the virtual green room, we were talking about these practices that we do. And I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but we'll come back. We'll come back. But these practices I do, and one of the things I do in the evening, I do gratitude in the morning, but one of the things I do in the evening, I was sharing with you,
Yes.
is what happened that was well.
Yeah.
And it's like retraining that reticular activating system. What's going on that's well, whether it's in your own life, whether
Yeah.
it's something like on a team that happened that was good today, maybe it was an interaction, or whether you're seeing some bright spot in your organization. So I
That's
just
right.
wanted to share that because as you were sharing, like as we transition into reinvention, like the brain is a funny thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a complex organ, right? And yes, oftentimes you're right. The RTS, as you're talking about, the reticular activating system, a lot of times we use that, we filter a lot
Mhm.
and we organize a lot of information, but we tend to oftentimes focus on the negative. But that's where we have to flip the script. Our brains are set up that, it can act as a gatekeeper and it can help regulate
Mhm.
some of those messages, but
Yeah.
we have to be very intentional about that as well. I
Mhm.
had to learn how to flip the script in my own life, and I had to start saying more, instead of saying, what if in a negative sense, I had to look at it from the sense of possibilities and the sense
Yes.
of opportunities. And instead of saying, what if I'm not good enough, I had to say, what if I'm stronger than I think? What if my
Mhm.
voice is the one that can spark a
Mhm.
movement? What if the storm that's passing is just preparing me for greater impact? So you got to flip it, right? And we can train our brain.
Absolutely. I love that. It really is a reorganization, a
Yes,
remapping of what it's, and it takes intention, it takes structure and
that's right.
discipline as well.
That's
Like
right.
one of the things that as you talk about the what if, and I love that, what if I'm stronger than I think?
That's
Woo,
right.
girl. Yes.
And that's
What if
powerful.
yeah, it is powerful, right? What if
Yeah.
I deserve everything that I ask for?
Yes. And
What?
what if I don't do it and I have regrets later? So
Mm,
sometimes we have
yeah.
to just ask ourselves some of those other
Mhm.
empowering questions instead
Yeah.
of using and being relegated to the disempowering questions that keep
Yeah.
us stuck.
Yes. Yeah. Like what would happen if it was possible?
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
I
And
love
what if
that.
I don't fail instead of
Yeah.
what
What
if
if
I
I
fail?
yeah,
You know,
what if I succeed?
I am more than enough.
Right. I mean, we could go on and on with some what ifs, you know. What if I am of value simply because I exist, not
Yeah,
because of what I do or bring, although that adds to the value, but I am inherent value simply because I exist. What if that? You know what I'm saying? So,
exactly.
like, these are the types of things, especially I think in Black women and
Yeah,
women in general, and yes, some men, right? You know, like, but mostly I'm going to say, you know, women and women of color and Black women, we are socialized to that we have to bring something more to the table to be worth or to
yeah.
for our voices to
We're
matter.
socialized to overcompensate
That's
simply,
right.
simply because of our gender, simply because of our color or
Mhm.
our race and ethnicity. So, yes, you're exactly right. That's how we've been socialized.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this reinvention because
Yeah,
as we talk about reorganizing the thoughts, reorganizing the mind, like I think this is the first step in the path to
yeah.
reinvention.
It is. And I'm big on too is first recognizing where we are, how we're feeling, what's our reality, our emotional
Mhm.
reality, because I think it's important that if we name it,
Yes.
name what we're feeling, when we do that, then we can heal from it. Then we can start to restore, be restored. And I
Yes.
think it's important for us, whether we're angry or frustrated or scared or overwhelmed or feeling some level of mental, fatigue, or even if we're feeling stressed and unsupported, underappreciated, let's acknowledge that and then we can start from there to then flip the script and to think about how we can now thrive through the storm. And so I always challenge us to replace fear with faith, to reframe our what ifs from worry to possibility. And it's
Yes.
not just about optimism, but it's about resilience, right? It's about choosing to rise
Yes.
again and again, regardless of what you're facing. My mentor, who is Les Brown, and he's done the forward a number of my books. I've had him in my life for over 20 years, and he is the master motivator, right? And
Yes.
so he used to say to me all the time, most people fail in life not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and they hit.
Yeah.
And life sometimes when we get in those what if negative thoughts, we can sometimes then shrink and play small. But I want us to think about how can we play big? How can we show up stronger? How can we dream bigger? And that comes through, first of all, reassessing your why and understand what fuels you, right?
Yeah.
What noise do you need to get rid of?
Yeah.
How do you need to think about the power that you bring, the gifts, the talents, the strengths that you have that the world needs, right? How dare you not be great because you were created that way with
Yes.
greatness on the inside of you?
Okay, okay, so I'm gonna sidebar just a little bit because number one, that was amazing. I love what you said about this space of we don't like what our mentor Les Brown
Yes,
has said. It's
most
not
people
that we
fail in
fail
life.
because
Yeah,
we aim
aim
too
too high.
high. It's because
Yeah,
we aim too low and we hit. I
yeah,
love that. And it really does speaks to again reorganizing the thought patterns for possibility. But there's
yeah.
something else that you said I want to move back to, which is recognizing where we are
That's
and
right.
the emotional spaces that we are and honoring
Mhm.
them and
Yeah,
naming them. There's
yeah.
such power in
It is.
naming. Well,
It
there's
is.
the saying name it to tame it. But I think what happens when we name it, because a lot of times we're holding on to these things in our body,
That's right.
and when we name it, it's almost like a release. It has no power over us.
That's it. That's it. We allow it by saying it, we acknowledge it, but then we also take the sting out of it because when we don't say it, it's still festering, right? It's still
Right.
marinating and it still has power over you. But when you speak it out, sometimes just by saying it out loud, you're saying it and it's just a release, which
Yeah.
I do that a lot and it helps me.
I think the other thing that's right behind that is normalizing that emotions happen.
That's
Because
right.
I think that, well, at least the way I was socialized is that if it is not happiness or motivation or some kind of positive emotion, then it's a bad thing. And so, like, normalizing, oh, fear happens. Okay, well, yeah, I'm just feeling some worry and nervousness right now. That doesn't mean anything about my capability or my capacity, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything, actually. It's just a normal, natural feeling. Emotions are information, right? And our actions are communication. So
Yeah.
I think that it's powerful to name and then to normalize, like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling this thing, like, no big deal. Now what? What
That's
is it?
right.
Like, what is it telling me? What is it? Oh, it might just be telling me that I haven't done this before, so I need to reach out to someone and get some empowerment, or I
Mhm.
need to access a resource, or maybe it tells me I need to practice and prepare, or maybe it just tells me it's uncertainty, and
That's
uncertainty
right.
is okay, you know?
I love it. It's all about your perspective and how you manage that and control that yourself. And I think that's a part of it too with the reinvention process we're talking
Yeah,
about and the mindset mapping and shifting is
yeah,
even that comes from having a growth mindset and
yeah.
not the negative or the fixed mindset to where we
Right.
constantly always living in this cycle of negativity,
Mhm.
but looking at challenge as a opportunity to
Mhm.
learn, to evolve, to grow. Because
Right.
reinvention requires curiosity and
Right.
it requires acknowledgement of where we are because change isn't static, right? It's something that helps us to continue to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll underpin like the practice. Sometimes we think, okay, well, now I know this information. I got to get it right the first time. And I just
Right.
want to honor practice over perfection
Yeah,
because, there are going to be times where we fall into a little bit of a swirl.
that's right.
And the key is recognizing it and naming it as quickly as possible and then reframing it. So you like recognize it, name it, and reframe it.
Yeah,
And then you can move into all of the rest of, okay, what's possible and how do you access the resources and what's next in terms of our behavior, actions, or
that's
communication.
right. And you know what, too, Dr. Maisha, let me just make sure our listeners know that they should not be fearful of failure,
That's right.
right? I mean, seriously, let's lean into it because
That's right.
failure is an opportunity for us to learn. I know a lot of people say, failure is not an option. And that's true if you fly on a plane, if you're on an airplane and you going somewhere. Failure not an option. Failure is not an option for me, if I'm, bungee jumping or whatever on a roller coaster.
Yes.
Failure is not an option. But in life, when we got to make decisions and we're dealing with just different situations every day, we're in relationships, we're in our careers, there's going to be situations that will happen where we may fail, but we can't be afraid to try it. We can't be afraid to jump and grow our wings on the way down.
That's right.
Failure is an option, but if you fail fast and fail forward, it
Mhm.
will continue to propel you to your next level. All of us fail. The most successful people in life have gotten there because they learned what not to do when they failed.
That's right. I like to think of failure as our internal GPS system.
Yeah,
Right? It's our
yeah,
own GPS system, right? And the more you fail, the more it's like our GPS slash AI. You
yes,
know?
that's right.
So when we're going along and we're allowing ourselves to miss turns here and there, and we can recalculate. We can
That's right.
recalculate, learn from
I love
those
it.
mistakes, right? Because if we're avoiding the action, then that we risk the biggest failure.
Yes, that's right. I love it. I love it. This is such good
I
stuff.
know. I know.
So, some of the other things that I do relative to reinvent yourself and thriving through the storms, I
Yeah.
encourage people, please always protect your peace. Your peace of mind. You got to drown out the noise. You got to turn off, toxic commentary and media. You got to limit your exposure to all of the negative things and be intentional about what you intake, about what you consume, because what's deposited on the inside of you is also what's going to be withdrawn. And so the more that I put inside of me, things that make me happy, things that bring me peace and joy, that's what you're going to get from me as well. So we got to act like a bank, right? We got to make more deposits than we make withdrawals.
I love that. And I think it's so important what you say about like sort of titrating the dose of
Yeah.
like the negative stuff, and really, so, and here's what I say. I think it's important to be mindful what and who we
Yeah.
bring in our space, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes even the most well-meaning of
That's right.
our family, our friends, our community, who may not have, they may not understand our dreams. They may not have the same
So good.
possibility, language, and mindset, will well-meaningly
That's right.
shrink you. And so I think it's important to, have to disconnect yourself from them completely. And you don't even have to justify or explain it. You can
Yeah.
just, begin to titrate the dose and turn the volume down on that messaging. Right.
Yes.
When you turn the volume down on that messaging, it doesn't impact you as much, because it's just like, oh, well, they are where they are. And, they mean well, but it's not the thing that I need to hear. And then you create, you build
Yeah.
communities around you of people that you can turn the
Mhm.
volume up on the empowerment, on being
Yeah.
reminded of who you are and what you can do. Let me tell you, yesterday I was having a conversation, and this is where I'm always learning and I'm always growing, and with a friend colleague, and I don't know how it came up, but I must have said something, and she said to me, you're still operating like what you do is what gives you value, not who you are. And I'm reframing
Wow.
it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do something to be deserving. And when I
Right.
tell you, that hit me in the chest, like it took the wind out of me. It took, I mean, because
That was
it
that was revelatory there.
yes, it hit a place so deep in me that I didn't even realize was still there.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and so, like, people like that, these are the kind of people I have in my life that will say little things like, she just said it
That's
on a passing. And I was like, whoa.
I love it. See, that's why I talk about having, like you said, community. It's a catalyst. I call them my personal board of advisors. And I think
Mhm.
it's so important to consider who is in your ear, who's in your circle, who's in your life, who's speaking into your life. Are they speaking life? Are they speaking negativity? Are they speaking doubt and you can't do it? But we've got to have people in our lives that, like you said, challenge you, hold you accountable, support you, stretch you, and they're not afraid of your BHAGs, your big, hairy, audacious goals. So I've got people around me that push me to my next level, that aren't intimidated or threatened when I've got big dreams and how big I want to grow and how much I want to do. They are the ones that are there to help me get to my next. And it's because they've either been there, done that, they're more successful than me, got the t-shirt, and they're willing to help give back and lift me up to help me get there too. That's who
Yes.
Les Brown is to me.
Yes. Because let's be real for a
Yeah,
moment. Let's be honest. We are people too.
that's right. That's right.
And what that means is, wow, people look at us and they're like, wow, she's on the stage, or wow, she's done this, or wow, she
Mhm.
can do that. We are people. And I would be lying through my teeth if I said I did not have moments of self-doubt.
Yes, me
Right?
too. Me too.
Yeah, like moments of what am I doing? Or moments of how did I get here? Or
Yeah,
moments of, like moments,
that's
because
right.
we are human and the brain does what the brain does. And we have lived experiences. Like, I have come from generations and generations of trauma
That's right.
and messages embedded in me. And I've done a lot of healing and released a lot of those. But every now and then a friend
Yeah.
will say
Shows
something to
up
me and
there.
unlock a whole new level of wound. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah,
what wound did I just lock into? And then I got to go do some more healing, like I did,
yeah,
today. I was like, oh,
that's
let me do a
so
little
true.
bit of something, little
Yeah,
self-care healing, releasing. And so it's important. That's one of the reasons I think that it's important to be able to have those communities,
that's
because
right.
we still have those moments of fear, of self-doubt, of sadness, of whatever the emotion, because we are human. And I think that's what that's what brings us to where we are, is that passion and that humanity
That's
and the
right.
courage to be a voice.
Exactly. And to, like you said, to be willing to even admit it and
Mhm.
share with others. I know for me, look, I wrote the book on reinvent yourself. I wrote the book on getting beyond your what ifs.
Yes.
Still have some. I've had a couple of sleepless nights this year just simply because of so many executive orders that's been coming down and people losing their jobs and clients having to deal with so much uncertainty, and
Yes.
it's impacted my business. And so, when stuff starts drying up or contracts are not coming in, it's like, oh my God, now I may have to deal with this, I have to deal with that. And so I acknowledge it, but
Mhm.
then at the same time, I have to get back to myself and say, okay, you've been here before. This is not something new. So
Yes.
here's how you need to process it. Here's
Yes.
how you need to think about it. I have to pray about it. I have to meditate on it.
Yes.
But I give me a strategy and I lean into it, but I refuse to park on the side of the road
That's
and
right.
let that become my reality and my destiny. I admit it, but
Mhm.
then I have to then speak to that and then have the strategies in place to be able to say, okay, here's what I'm going to do about that, but I'm not going
Yeah.
to stay stuck.
There's something else that you said, which I think is probably one of the most important things if we were to have a most important thing. And that is,
Mm,
and you mentioned it sort of in passing, but not, which is faith, faith and
yeah,
belief. We have to believe
that's right.
that in the things that we cannot yet see.
Correct.
Because again, if we think about that reticular activating system,
Yeah.
and we think about the fact that we actually think in pictures,
Hmm.
when we have a vision and we believe in that vision and we walk in faith, whether you're religious or not, let me just say right here, right now, that faith, if you just look up the definition,
Hmm.
there's no religiosity attached to it. You can be of religious faith, you could be spiritual, you could be agnostic, you could be whatever. But having that belief in the vision is holding the picture of that vision in your mind so that you can walk toward it,
Absolutely.
believing that it is possible and it can happen and it will happen if you continue to do the actions one at a time. And I
Yeah.
think that's so important because if we're determined to do something, we make a decision to do something, we create the community, we're doing the work,
Yeah.
but we're like, I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, I'm doing all this work, but then we're kind of like, counteracting our hard work
That's
with
right.
all the self-doubt because what we're focusing our reticular activating system on is what we don't
Yeah.
want to happen, what we're
Yeah.
afraid will happen, all the things that we're moving away from rather than what we're moving toward. And so
Yeah.
I just think that when you mentioned that, I wanted to call that back into the
It's so
conversation because if
important.
there's a way to sort of wrap it all together, I
Yeah.
think that like doing all the things, but also having faith and believing and walking forward, believing in the things and the vision that you have not realized yet is so
Yes.
important.
Faith is. And for me, it's spiritual, but it's emotional, it's
Yes.
psychological, it's
Yeah.
all those things for me because you're right. I hold on to it. I believe it in my heart. I internalize it. I speak it until it happens. And the more I do that, I'm really taking that belief, putting
Yeah.
action to it so that I can actually see the results or see it manifest. So that's what faith is. It's just believing in yourself, believing that it can happen, or believing in a higher power that is helping to drive you
Mhm.
towards the mindset you need, the actions that you need to take, the behaviors that you demonstrate so that you can get what you want and
That's
need.
right. Higher power, universal law,
That's
karma, whatever you want to call it.
right.
Hold the vision, do the
Exactly.
action, have
That,
empathy, be
yeah,
kind and compassionate,
I
watch
love
universal law work.
I love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
This is
Matt,
good.
I mean, listen, I know that we could talk forever.
That's right.
What's the maybe like let's say top three things you want the audience to take away? Because we've talked about so much. What are the
Yeah.
top three things that you would have the audience take away from this conversation about moving
Yeah.
beyond the what if and thriving through the
Mhm.
storm?
A couple of things that we've already hit on. So let me package it with a nice little bow. And that is, again, we talked about relationships. Relationships are the new currency.
Yes.
Relationships will help you do more, be able to achieve more, make more money, save money, time, effort, and energy by leveraging the resources, the relationships that you have in your life. They have helped me so much. So I think that's so important because they will help you grow. They'll help you expand. They'll help you get a larger vision for yourself. That's one. The second thing I think is too, is what Les used to always say to me, in addition to what I quoted earlier about, most people, they don't achieve things in life because they aim too high. But the other thing he used to say to me, and I think is so important with every one of us, get out of your head so you can step into your greatness.
That's right.
We can get into analysis paralysis all the time. We can be our biggest and most negative, saboteurs.
That's
we
right.
can derail our success simply because we're in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want people to play small, think small. I don't want you to shrink. I don't want you to feel like an imposter. There is power on the inside of you and the world needs it. And then the third thing I'll say is that we should learn to jump and grow our wings on the way down. We've got to learn how to take risk on ourselves. Reinvention requires movement. So I want us to be a movement and not a monument. Don't stand still in life. Don't park on the side of the road. Don't become complacent and in your comfort zone, because that's the safe place. But we've got to learn that life is not perfect. We're not perfect. But when you jump and take a risk on yourself, I always say this: risk is scary. Yes, it is. But regret is worse. So I want us to learn how to faith it until we can make it, because you will make it. You'll be okay.
That's right. That's right. Ooh, well, that is wonderfully packaged up. Wonderfully packaged up. Thank you so much for this conversation. Oh my goodness.
Pleasure.
This conversation was amazing. And I just so appreciate you. And I know that the audience can take some gems from this and be able to apply it in their lives, because we are, real talk, we are in a very tough time right now. And I think it's important when we're in these tough times to have these bright spots, these conversations to pour back into us and to fill our cup and to remind us that we can thrive through this storm. We have done it before as a culture, as a community, even as a society. We have done it before and we can do it again. So thank you so much for bringing the wisdom, bringing the joy and the light into today's conversation. I so appreciate you, Dr. Shirley.
Thanks so much. So I hope people will stay in touch with me. I love it, love it, love it. I know you've given them some of my early information, but please follow me at drshirleydavis.com. Link in with me. I'm on Instagram as well. And the book we were talking about today is Living Beyond What If. It's available on Amazon today.
Awesome. We will have all of that information in the show notes. Please check Dr. Shirley. drshirleydavis.com is her website. If you are watching this video on the YouTube podcast, you can see it right on the screen. But we will, for those who are audio listening, we will have it in the show notes as well. So thank you again for being with me on today's podcast. Thank you again to our listeners. Hey, you know what I always say? Share this episode. Share it with a friend, a family member, a colleague, Les Brown, Oprah, Gail King, Jay Hud, those people. Share with someone in your life that will benefit from this. Because this is the way that we create the ripples, that create the waves, that create those titles of transformation. So, and then of course, I asked at the beginning, I'm going to ask, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, go leave a review. Go leave a review so that the people coming behind you know, hey, they're having some awesome conversations. You need to check it out and listen to some of the past episodes so you can kind of see what we're talking about here. So thank you again for everything that you've brought, Dr. Shirley. Thank you for our guests. And listen, y'all keep remapping your mind. And until the next time I see you, stay empowered.
Thank you for joining me on today's episode. We truly appreciate our listeners because without you, there is no podcast. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode and that it gave you fresh insights and practical tools to elevate your communication and build trust and safety in all areas of your life, from leading your teams to strengthening your relationships at home. If today's conversation resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast, share this episode, and leave us a 5-star review. Your support helps us reach more people looking to enhance their relationships, their leadership, and the communication in every area of their life. If you are ready to take your communication to the next level, I encourage you to check out our Communication That Transforms online course. This course dives deep into creating psychological safety, mastering trauma-informed communication that allows you to build behavioral flexibility and tackle any circumstance in your life. You'll learn practical strategies for handling difficult conversations, navigating conflict, and cultivating trust in a way that truly resonates with the people around you and leaves them feeling seen, heard, respected, valued, and welcome. This course is designed to help you transform not only how you lead, but how you show up in all your relationships, whether in the boardroom with your teams or at home with your family. Check out the course at mindremappingacademy.com/TICC to learn more, see the full course catalog, and register. This link will also be in the show notes. That's www.mindremappingacademy.com/TICC. Finally, if these topics resonate with you and you want to bring them to your department, your team, or your organization, I'd love to speak with you. Reach out to me and invite me in for a workshop or a conference tailored to elevate your organization's trust, collaboration, communication, safety, and belonging. You can learn more and reach out to me by visiting mindremappingacademy.com/corporate-programs. Remember, change happens one intentional conversation at a time. With one small shift in how we connect, listen, and lead. Keep listening with intention and communicating with clarity. And until the next episode, stay empowered.